Hello and welcome to the Echo Chamber podcast. My name is Tony Groves and today we have a doctor in the house. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and the man who's actually suing Mr. Tato for his image rights breaches. I was looking on the Ireland account this morning and there was a big thing about Mr. Tato and I said, just put that bowler hat on, Martin. That's all you're missing.
Okay. Some days we do Pinky and the Brain in here. And I tell you, Tony's never the brain.
Yeah. But much more importantly, I'm delighted to be joined at the Tortoise Shack by freelance journalist, blog consultant and contributor with Phoenix magazine, Ronan Leonard, aka the Tech Doctor. Ronan, we've had professors, we've even had royalty, we've had a Sir in here. Are you the first doctor?
No, Sir, yeah.
Well, no, he likes to be called Professor Sir. He has two titles. But Ronan, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. And it is really... Like we spoke to you for a few weeks now about coming in, but it's kind of really relevant today because you are kind of a real consumer of social media, the tech industry, and the wider. The last 24 hours have been very interesting, where we've seen Facebook and Google now step away from the referendum and taking money from foreign ads, and just Google saying we're not taking any ads. What do you think? This is unprecedented. Have you any opinions on it?
I think it's right because you can't have something come in. It's like with America, with Russia. You can't have something come in and changing a referendum or the public vote because you're changing democracy.
And I suppose that's the key to this, because Facebook have actually admitted in the US Senate that these things have an influence on people, because they kind of denied, we're a platform, we're not involved, but they've had to admit that it has swayed votes, and advertising works.
Sadly, because when you see an ad and it comes up and it's an ad for the Yes or No campaign, I'm not getting a lot of foreign ads where explicitly you see a child being aborted or pictures of that. And I'm sitting there going, I don't want to see this. I mean, I know what I'm going to vote. Don't sway my vote, but there's guys who are on the
undecided.
Yeah, and they're going to suddenly be seeing this, and it's going to sway them one way or the other.
Yeah.
Well, I think it makes people feel comfortable if you think, if you're teetering one way or the other, and you think there's a very large voice either side, then you're swayed into that large voice. If the majority, that's how it works. If you think the majority is there, well, that's the safe bet. That's where everybody's going. I mean, we saw the politicians do this, wrestling with their conscience, basically waiting to see which way is the wind blowing on this one before we say anything.
But even Gavin Sheridan, we mentioned before we came on air, did great work around this, showing how there was a website set up to be a fact-based
for the undecided.
Yeah. And once you've gone into it, then you'd be more or less spammed with no propaganda. I suppose where we really need to look at this from an Irish standpoint is this is purely because these big tech companies, these tech giants globally, are in Ireland and they're not really regulated. And now we know they're not really regulated, and we also know that a lot of the stuff that they've done. And this is not true malfeasance. This is just sales. They need to sell ads, advertising space. So a company wants to make money. No surprise there, folks. That doesn't mean that they're bad players. It just means that they're taking money in. But at the end of the day, we have the onus is on the Irish government to actually have acted, and we should have acted previously to this. The Data Protection Commissioner a couple of years ago had a report into Facebook, which I think recommended 14 actions they needed to take around data protection. And I think to date, only 5 or 6 of them have been put into force.
Yeah.
But the Data Protection Commission here works on, it's not a right or wrong basis. It's to try and compromise and reach a solution, which doesn't help. The Data Protection Commissioner needs to be more stringent, needs to be more the policeman rather than the mediator. Because it's letting people down. It's letting loads of people down right across the country.
Yeah, I think if you're bringing a law from the EU or GDPR, that law has to be enacted as it said. And you can't swing aside, we're going to change bits of it because it doesn't suit our agenda of what we want in this country.
Yes.
And tried to do that before with the government bodies, they're going to be exempt. Thankfully that was shot down, because my view is, how can somebody who's a government body, like if, for example, like a few years ago, I remember somebody who was a Meteor, one of the people left laptop with data on it.
Yeah.
Now, if that was somebody who'd done it with a health person dealing with health data, which is done before in the past, left lying around. And you're saying, oh, it's okay, we'll let them off with it because the government body. How can they be let off with it when a company who's got employees has to pay a fine?
The double standard, actually, what they try to do, folks, if you're not aware, is they try to take an exemption from GDPR for government bodies and actually the political practices where they could actually collate and take your data, as what your political persuasions were. That was that was an outrage. People say, no, that was, why would they do that? It was only a benign thing. No, it couldn't. All you need is one bad player to actually turn that into a malignant practice. Luckily, they've been told they can't do it. But more worryingly, we are looking for exemptions to the GDPR policy that comes into force actually in 15 days, I think. This is not this is not something a year away.
How ready are businesses and government for GDPR because that's where you are? You're in that field. How ready are people for GDPR?
Not ready enough. I spent the past year working as a coalition for a company called Host in Ireland, or an organisation that got together about 10 or so years ago to promote Ireland as a safe place to store data for cloud storage. Because our weather was so nice and wasn't too cold, wasn't too warm, no storms. Unlike somewhere like if you're somewhere like Florida, where a lot of the internet services are stored for a lot of balance from Florida, every year there's big storms there, and you can't guarantee it's going to be safe. Or if you're somewhere like in Thailand, which is where people you store in the past, you get a lot of bad weather as well. Or if you're in a regime which could be changed, 1 minute you're pro-West, next minute anti-Western, your data's gone. So it's like, could be, soon the government goes, we're going to have everything here is going to be run by the government again, nationalised.
Yeah.
So in Ireland, we have a scenario where we had this great climate and we're very pro-European, very pro-American. So Hosting Ireland was set up to promote Ireland as a place to host data. And about a year ago, the guy who founded it, Gary Connolly, wanted to set up a what called the GDPR Coalition, where people got together in different areas and promoted it. So his view was, make sure you're ready for GDPR. At that point, he asked me, because I work for Irish Tech News as a freelance writer and podcaster, and he asked me, as a media person for Irish Tech News, would I come along on board and help promote this? So every few months we meet together and discuss what we're going to do to promote it. But sadly, people are looking at it and think, it's not going to affect us. We've got another year down the line to kick the ball down the road till it's too late.
And there's big fines. I mean,
20%. The thing is, 20 million euros or 4% of your annual turnover, whichever the greater.
I mean, is there many companies out there that can afford to take a 20 million or 4% of your turnover hit?
Facebook can.
Well, Facebook can, but I mean, the smaller companies.
No. Yeah, but I do love that you pointed that immediately because that's worrying, Ronan, because you know that Facebook can.
Yeah.
They could literally look at this and go, you know what, we'll take our medicine for a while because it means that we can keep the income stream open. That's an interesting thought process. Yeah, it's the same if you're a lobbyist. If you're a lobbyist and you spend 5 million lobbying, but by lobbying for 5 million you get $500 million in tax cuts, it's great business practice. Yeah. Same principle.
Well, I think people like that, people who got the money, you can afford it for 20 million away, don't really care. So if you're something like a Facebook or somebody of that size, now people like Twitter, I think for them it's a bit different because they've got problems at the moment with how are they going to make money, because the moment they've tried for 10 years,
they're still not making money.
Still not making money. They're trying to advertising and trying to get more out of that. But Twitter to me is a great platform, and if it goes, that'd be sad, because good thing with Twitter is you can see you can tweet to somebody on there you don't know, or you can tweet to anybody and it will be shared automatically. On Facebook, unless you're actually on it, you can't see it, you can't share it. And if I share an article on Facebook, I've got to get a friend to share something. It won't go viral as easy as it will on Twitter.
Well, I've said this about Twitter quite a bit. Twitter is unusual in the platforms that are out there in that it is very open and you can see everything. The echo chamber on Twitter, there are echo chambers, of course. It depends on who you follow, who follows you. Yeah. But if you're kind of an open policy and you follow everybody and you listen to everybody, you get a great feedback coming in. How to monetize Twitter is a completely different thing. How do you monetize something that is basically chat over the garden wall?
Yeah.
How do you monetize that? I don't know. Will it be gone? I don't think it'll ever be gone. I think it'll always be there in some sort of form. Does it need?
Yeah, everything goes, Martin.
Yeah, everything changes. So I'm not particularly worried whether it moves on. I think Facebook is, and I know it has the numbers and that they keep coming back, the amount of people active on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I think it's as dead as a dodo. I think it's utterly dead when you're in there. It's lifeless,
You're
soulless.
absolutely insane. I'm not on Facebook, but the numbers are colossal.
They are
the
colossal.
number of people in the world who are engaged on Facebook is just phenomenal.
But you're engaged in very small echo chambers.
Absolutely, but people, there's a comfort in that, mate. You know what I mean? It's nice to share and people think that it's not necessarily a bad thing that you talk to people who you like and you get along with. You can afford to. It's your life. You get to lead it the way you want. I find on Twitter when I do engage with people who have varying political views with me, they tend not to even. After a little while, I followed one of the libertarians once, and he replied to me, "I'm going to regret this, aren't I?" And I thought, not really, if you wanted to step out of the bubble for a minute,
Well, just as an aside, because it really tickled me yesterday, when we saw that Google and Facebook were saying no more ads until we know who you are.
Yeah.
There was a story that Iona had been taken down off YouTube, and of course there were complaints. David was complaining, John was complaining, Paddy was out complaining, and then the dentist came on, and the dentist was giving out about this, and I was like, well, he's a pure neoliberal. I mean, pure neoliberal. He's a anarcho-capitalist, and he's given out that a company makes a decision to protect itself, which is what they were doing, was making a decision to protect itself, and he's given out that it's not doing, this isn't proper public service. It's a company making money. They don't follow public service rules. They are there to make money. And as a neoliberal, you can't have it both ways. You simply can't have it both ways. You either support neoliberalism all the time, or you don't support it any of the time.
But that's actually what's been very funny about this campaign. And it has been, we're nearly there now. We're 2 weeks and a day to the campaign, and it's been very difficult in terms of some of the stuff that's happened and some of the tactics have been, some vile things have happened outside maternity hospitals, and I don't want to get into specifics other than to say I'm fed up of that, but the agenda of certain areas that have been exposed by this, you cannot be a libertarian and say you're not for freedom of choice. Okay, you just can't.
Yeah, no.
These things like that people are saying this where and the mask has slipped on a lot of the Irish right wing on that. And then alternatively, in other areas, there are people who are just soft yeses and they're staying out of it. And I can almost understand that to a degree as well, because, it can be quite draining on you. I find, you just have to dismiss the DMs that you get. But,
you did a thing some time back to show just how easily it was to influence people using social media. You want to tell us a little? Can you tell us a little about that?
I'd rather not talk about that.
That's okay.
Because I just know, for example, that all I would say is that what I did do in the experiment I show is, like, for example, if somebody, for example, is contacted via email, Twitter, and it says, we're with your bank, could you give us your details? How many would actually give it over?
Very few these days.
Yeah, but it does happen.
Yeah.
People are going to do that. They're going to think, okay.
One in 100 might do it, but it's still...
Yeah.
Same if you get this phone call saying, I had one a few years ago, a phone call from a guy in India. Tech support. He rang up because he rang, I think it was someone on his phone and said, your computer has a problem. I said, well, what is it? Oh, yeah, well, you have to turn it off and restart it. Because I turn it off, restart it. Goes, okay, now turn it on again. Do you see the window screen? No, not yet. He goes, okay, fine, okay. Do you see the bit we have to key in your password? Yep, key it in. Did that, okay. Turn on. He goes, do you see start button now? Says, sorry, no, don't see start button. He goes, well, it should be there. I said, it's not there. And he goes, well, when it is there, let me know, because I want you to go to the command prompt, and then I'm going to get you to type in some codes. They're going to download software onto my machine that can then access it. I said, sorry, I don't see it there. And he goes, why not? I said, I'm on a Mac. And then the guy went ape shit at me. I'm going, sorry, why are you swearing at me? I thought you worked for Microsoft Customer Service.
Yeah.
And the guy didn't, but phone went down. And I said, that's 10 minutes I wasted of that guy's time that he won't be scam somebody else.
Yeah, and there is a lot of scams going on at the moment. I mean, it's in
But even the legitimate stuff, and I've seen it so often now where you get a legitimate phone call from a company and they ring you from a private number and ask you to identify yourself.
Yeah.
I think that is hilarious. I have no traceability, and you're coming on saying, give me your mother's maiden name, your date of birth, and you're going, and I love the part where they say, and this is a good little tip for anybody who's aware of this, they say these calls are recorded. And you go back and say, these calls are recorded and you want me to give you all my personal details and I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to it because you'll see how stupid that sounds. Generally, I just discontinue the call.
So where are we heading with GDPR? How is this country going to cope with GDPR? Or are we just going to be dropped into it and nobody's prepared?
It's like a drop kick and you're prepared, not prepared. Some guys are prepared and ready for it. They knew in a year in advance what had to be done and they went and did everything right. Other guys didn't. And they're still not sure what to do. Like last week I went to a course in GDPR and as a one-man business, I wasn't sure what I have to do to qualify because I'm used to telling guys who are big companies, etc., what they have to do. But for me, I thought, what do I do? Turns out, if you're a person who's self-employed like me, who's got a company or is a sole trader, if your laptop is encrypted, which means basically that they can't get into it without it's encrypted automatically, you're fine. And on a Mac, that's standard software, which you can turn on called File Vault.
Okay.
If you're in a PC, it's different. Unless you've got enterprise version of Windows, you have to buy software from Microsoft to encrypt your PC. Most guys won't have that built in because they're buying stuff you get in the shops. So that's not standardized. It's extra. After that, you got to have a password for your laptop to log into it. And then you have to tell your client, you also got to check where your data has been stored. If it's on the cloud, like for example, it's in the cloud, where is the cloud server based? Not the exact location, but the country. So if, for example, you're using Google Cloud Storage or IBM Cloud Storage, you got to ask Microsoft and Google, what country is it in? I need to know for GDPR regulations so I can tell my clients. So you email the client, tell them, I've got your data on file. What I have on file of you is your name, maybe your address, your phone number, your email address, and maybe anything you send for me for what I could do for you. You email them back, tell them, do you consent to me to keep this on file? And by the way, if it's stored in the cloud, I use so-and-so in the cloud provider, and this is where it's stored. And you tell them, and then you're good to go.
So, informed consent the whole way along the line. And it has to be informed consent.
Yeah.
You can't leave your client sitting there not knowing where their data is stored in your company.
Yeah, and you can't go and decide to tell them on the day GDPR comes in or tell them afterwards. It's got to be before it kicks in, so they know you're compliant. And if you're compliant with this, you're good to go.
So GDPR kicks in 15 days. So if you haven't already written to your clients, informed them all of this information, you're already way behind the curve.
Yeah, well, in my case, I've still got it for my clients, but I've only got about 5 or 6 clients to inform by email, and I haven't much to tell them. So in my case, I can do it tomorrow and I'll be fine. But there's guys who've got loads of clients they have to do it to. And the problem is, if you have an email basically where you send basically each client a personalized email, that'll take you a lot longer.
Yes.
Whereas some guys might just do a generic one and have blank CC for all the copy for all their clients. Say, dear customer, or dear so-and-so. You can do it that way. But there's other guys who might do it personally, like dear Joe. Like I got last year, and I only going to get PR releases last year from beer companies. One last year was a person sent me an email. On it was CC'd every other journalist in Ireland who does tech. And other journalists as well, like people from the news talk.
Well, it doesn't make your client feel special at all.
No, but I was sitting there going, so this person sent me this email last year, this PR company sent me this email. Twice I got an email from them. I'm thinking, right now, I have here a database that if I sell it to somebody, it's worth a lot of money because this is something people would kill for.
Of course, yes, of course.
I'm thinking, this is something, and the opening, so I told them, by the way, just to let you know, if you send me an email again like this, I'm not touching it because you're breaking GDPR rules. You shouldn't be having all our data openly shared on this. So, I mean, email address is nothing much, but still, the other guys who might like the email address been shared because it could be spam. Like, for example, if you're somebody in RT or basically News Talk, they're going to get spam a lot more than me because they work for a big broadcaster.
Yes.
For me, because of my Irish Tech News stuff, they're going to email me and get it on there. But I'm not a big a name as RT is or TV3 or something else is. So they're going to get spammed a lot. And my view is, how do you stop that? Don't openly share the email address to everybody else. And I guarantee it takes one person to share the email addresses around for a little bit of money.
Yes.
Like a bit of lobbyist. And that's all it takes, one person to do that. And that is worth gold to study that content.
Well, it's all about databases. Everybody wants to build them.
Even on a personal level, if you're not in media or something like that, just check your own emails of the last few weeks. You've probably gotten something from McDonald's saying to you, there's a new summer range coming out here, and click here to stay in touch with us. Because they've gotten your details from the logged in on Wi-Fi now, and they need to keep you on their data list, and they know that they can't because they're not compliant with the new GDPR. Everybody's emails are filled with these companies, and it's great because you can just ignore them now, and then you fall off their listings in 2 weeks because you didn't even realize you were on these companies' listings. Because when you sign into someone's Wi-Fi, you probably agreed that they can share your detail with third parties.
Well, who looks at the terms T's and C's?
I'll give you a big tip. For me, I have an email address I use for basically spam. So it's one I use that alone, that when I go to someone's free Wi-Fi, I will actually log in and use that as an email address. So if I get spam there, I don't care. And I get tons of spam with this email address. I'll look at it now and again, and that's it. And some of them will be like McDonald's saying basically, because GDPR wants to keep you on file because you have Wi-Fi. I'll click on that. I get other ones from them all the time I don't even bother looking at. And if you have an address designed for that, only that, you're going to be safe because you don't really care what goes in there. Why would you have your own personal email address basically spammed by these guys?
Well, just little aside, that brings us over to why would the government collect all this data about citizens of Ireland, store it in all one place and make it this huge big target for everybody who wants that information?
Because some of the things that we work about Elaine Edwards, we talk about the...
yes, Elaine,
talking about the cards. And I seen last week they were talking about that, they were saying that those, the photographs aren't biometric data. But under the data protection rules, they are biometric data. So who's telling the truth?
Well, I actually went back to a 2016 social welfare report that came out in 2016. It was when Leo Varadkar was Minister for Social Welfare, and it says very clearly, we collect biometric data, we compare it against all of the photographs that were in the system to make sure that you are who you say you are. It's there in black and white. It's in black and white. And yet, I've had the Minister tell me, no, we don't collect biometric. You tell me personally, we don't collect biometric data. Now,
but she was completely wrong there. She
still holds that position.
I know, but that's because she's working. Like, that's because it's not. That's her job to talk nonsense. Sometimes she's talking about. She clearly doesn't understand what biometric data is. She cannot say that she understands it better than the European Court, and that's what she's trying to tell people. And it's an outrageous lie that they've been peddling for months.
But you can't say it's a lie, even though
I can't say it's a lie because the courts have judged it a lie. That's why I can say it. I would normally be a little more careful in what I say, as you know, Martin. I'd be a lot more measured in how I'd respond to these things. But it's outrageous where you can think a ministerial opinion can trump a European court. I'm sorry, you can't minister. You cannot.
Compulsory but not mandatory, or vice versa, or whatever that nonsense
was. It last week where they tendered for people to collate biometric?
That's right, yeah.
So you're saying, hang on. So and she actually then stood up when she was challenged on this, and this Regina seems to be a very forthright woman and really pushing herself out there. But she then said, she stood over her initial tweet, I think is what she said. I think she referred to Twitter as well, that it's not biometric. You can't do that. You can't hold, you can't.
But the government is, and when you think that every single person in this country, will have dealings with the Department of Social Protection at some stage in their lives. There is no other place that has that influence, has that power, and yet can blatantly say it's not biometric data.
That's not, but we're still getting hung up on this. That shouldn't be the issue. The issue should be where we turn around and say, if you're going to have this card, have the legislation properly in place to have the card. And if you can't have the legislation in place, you need to scrap it. So there's still actually...
But this brings us back to the Data Protection Commissioner. This public services card has been sitting on the Data Protection Commissioner's table for not weeks, months, years.
I agree. It's wrong. I mean, also, why is the advice of the ministers and the government telling them basically, you're wrong, this is what it should be? She should be advising that, prepping them to know what to say. She's not been told properly what to do.
Well, we had that meeting of, what was it, symposium, whatever it was, with the Data Protection Commissioner turned up to I&M's shindig, and I&M were mired in a fake news story at the time. I mean, those optics.
Not a fake news. It was a data protection breach where servers were taken off site,
and also where the government paid them for ads to not look like ads. You know, so this is the Data Protection Commissioner sitting in here. The idea, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that the Data Protection Commissioner is biased. Absolutely none. Now, the visuals tell me this.
Yeah.
And the visuals tell me this. So how can I have any faith in a system like that?
Well, bias is even bias. You couldn't prove bias, but you can say compromised.
Yeah.
Certainly compromised on the fact that you go.
The visuals look biased.
The optics are terrible.
Yeah.
Optics are absolutely terrible.
And for me, what's worse is the moment if you got driving license data, it's stored now in America.
Mm.
And I'm wondering why it's stored in America, because American rules are so lax. Like Twitter 3 years ago decided anybody outside North America data has been stored in Ireland because we have more rigid rules, because they knew for a fact that if somebody wants to get your data from the American government or anything else, they can't, because they've got to go through the European courts. So if Twitter are doing that from American side for everyone else in the world, why is the Irish government allowing our data to be stored in Canada and America?
But why is it acceptable that a Garda commissioner can lose 9 out of 12 phones and 2 laptops and 2 hard drives? And, you know, why is this stuff? Why is it all culturally acceptable? Because culturally, we just shrug and we say, sure, oh look, that's how we do things.
There's could be a real kicking for us coming down the line, particularly with the likes of, say, we are the regulator for Facebook for Europe.
Yeah, and also Africa, EMEA. Africa
and
Asia.
Africa and Asia.
We dropped the ball anywhere along that line, and we're in for an awful kicking. Now, we're dropping the ball all the time.
Yeah.
But it just takes somebody to say, all right, well, now we're going to sue you for dropping the ball. It takes another country to step in and say, oh, we're going to sue the ass off you for stepping the ball. And you think 13 billion from Apple will look like big money. It'll look like peanuts when they come after us.
What I find annoying is that when you have basically these basically governments in Ireland or elsewhere deciding basically that we can never take companies. Like in Ireland, we basically, you're more or less saying to take companies, yeah, you're fine, do what you want. We lack regulation. We don't really care.
Well, I have an old adage that I use about multinationals coming in here. They come in for the tax breaks, they stay for the lax data protection.
Yeah.
And that is the truth. They can do anything they like. Anything they like.
Well, what annoys me is that basically, if Twitter left America to have data stored in Ireland, we're a bit more secure than America is. That when you want data from if you ask to get data from here back to America, probably going to be told no. Good chance to be told no, which is great. But the problem is we're still not secure enough in other areas that we should be secure. I mean, if Europe brings in a law with GDPR and it's going to be stringent, why do we go and get exemptions? It's European-wide law. And no matter what, if somebody is living in basically Brussels or living in Dublin, same rules should apply. We shouldn't change just because we're different countries.
But we have this, it's not just, again, I'm going to go back to it and broaden it out. I'm going to say it's the same principle when it came to something as simple as TTIP, when they tried to introduce that. Because the real reason was that our food standards, for example, were higher than they were in the US.
Yeah.
So we could then all of a sudden end up with genetically modified food on your processed foods, and away you go. You know, if we accept less, we'll get less. It really is that case, and it's almost an endemic issue when you talk about what's happening as Ireland at the coalface of data processing. Let's just say, you know, Apple building a server in Athenry. Let's just say the cross-Atlantic cabling that's popping up out of the west coast of Ireland. Like these are real things that are going to be tangible for Ireland, and they're going to have huge consequences for us. We hope that it continues. We are a low tax economy for multinationals. That's our unique selling point. We're a transparent tax haven. We say it all the time. But if we're going to do that, we need transparency when it comes to actually how we handle and process data as well. And we're way behind it.
Well, if we can't hold a government to account, or even a department to account for the data they're collecting, how in God's name are we going to hold somebody like Facebook or Twitter or Google to account?
I'll tell you what, last year I interviewed a company on a podcast who actually they do the cable from Atlantic into Ireland. Yeah. I interviewed them about this. And they were basically said, oh, well, they're going to go by the strict European rules around data, which is fair enough. And I also heard this morning on Twitter, Tom Lyon said Apple aren't going to Athenry, they pulled out.
No, see, this is... And
that's because basically in the time it took them to get this done in Ireland, Denmark, they built one data center and built one more has not been built.
Yeah, they built one and actually have planning and broken ground on a second one in Denmark while we were waiting to sort out the planning process.
And all because there was one person in particular, we'll call it Snowflake, who had I think he had some kind of land lying vacant in Wicklow that was designated for use for the data center, and he hoped Apple would move in there. So he said, I'll make them fight for the one in Athenry, hoping they'll move to my one. They chose Athenry for a reason. If they chose this, why would they go to Wicklow?
That's the first I've heard of it. So it is definitely not going ahead.
No, Tom Lyons once said on Twitter.
Wow, that's the first I heard of that.
I'm not surprised. I knew that was coming in line because when I read about this guy saying that, I don't know, he's hoping that basically they might be thinking, if I stall the ball in Athenry, might look elsewhere in Ireland.
Athenry is geographically important more so than anything else because it's just on the
line of the cable.
The line of the cable.
And also as well, with basically something like Athenry, there's nobody nearby that can disturb, no big cities or anything else, so no one's going to complain. And also because it was going to be basically powered by basically a thing, self-powered generation, it wasn't going to be pollutant of anything. It was going to be very eco-friendly.
Well, that was after a bit of debate that it was, because it was looking like it was going to affect the water table with the amount of stuff they were going to use.
Yeah.
But the technology's there to make it a bit more eco-sustainable. Yeah. But more importantly, the other fallacy was the jobs fallacy.
Yes.
That was never a real reality. Like there was more jobs created in the Barack Obama Plaza, the petrol station, than there were in this data center.
And we have to look at that too. We don't necessarily want MNCs coming in here and just using us as this static base for data with no jobs created and money just passing through and out again.
What you do is when you have a data center created, you have basically 10 guys. Maybe 4 guys of security on the place. You have 1 guy who's the manager of the place, and you have somebody who's an engineer coming in again and his bits. If a server goes down, he comes in, fix it, bring us back to base. And the base could be head office of Apple down in Cork. So that's what you'd have. So maybe 10 guys will be working there in total. And the security guys could be guys that they are hired some contractors. So not really, and probably in 0 hour contracts.
Yes.
You wouldn't have it done. So we'll say, well, we'll get this guy come in 0 hours. And they'll do that. And I've seen the one they've got in America. And they're out in the middle of nowhere. I've forgotten where it is, in the Carolina, in the middle of nowhere. Huge big place, armed guards around it. And basically their view is our data is not going to be taken by anybody. So Apple's got this thing that we don't care what it is. You will not get our data because we'll make sure no one's taken it.
Yeah, well, it's something we have to look at on a wider scale, not just to do with data protection or Apple, in that I've seen a place in the UK. It's massive plant, and it's run by 6 people in a room. But this replaced something like 5,000-6,000 jobs. And we've got to ask ourselves, is this the route we really want to go when we're bringing in multinationals in here? There's no added value to that. There's simply no added value to it at all.
Well, that's a conversation for what's going to happen in terms of the common consolidated corporate tax base and where the EU goes, particularly post-Brexit, where Ireland, Ireland has never stood up for its citizens when it came to the bailout. It never stood up for us when it came to the banks or when it came to taking on the 42% of the total bank bailout, or when it came to renegotiating or saying things like not another red cent, or even still renegotiating debt. Hasn't stood up for us, but we have made it abundantly clear that a red line issue is the corporation tax rate.
Yeah. Just on Brexit, how are we going to be affected? I mean, there has to be data protection issues with Brexit that nobody has even looked at.
Well, that's where you get companies in the UK looking to Ireland if they can find office space. A lot of banks are thinking, it's going to affect us. Can we have an office in Ireland? And they're trying to find one here because that's going to be an issue. Where do they get the space?
Are we looking at plaques on walls, types of offices, or actual
offices, people, because when you've got people, they've got to handle the clients from all over Europe. And if the data has been stored in here, the people here to actually manage it.
Okay.
They can't have basically a plaque on the wall, and like you do with some companies in IPC. There's a plaque on the wall, and you look in the office, and there's 40 different companies on the plaque on the wall, and you got one person behind the desk, and the office there is virtual office. No, it's going to be basically people working here, because if you're dealing with data in Europe, it's got to be stored on the European place and under European law. And And from the UK, if UK pull it Brexit and it's hard Brexit, whatever it is, they can't at the moment deal with European law. They don't want to.
So if that's a plus for us, that we're going to have companies coming in here.
We have them. They're coming. They're registered for licenses. They have to have EU licenses to practice it. Like, so if you're a financial service provider and you're licensed in the UK, you need to have an EU license to practice. A lot of them are heading to Paris. Some of them are heading to Dublin. Some of them are heading to Berlin. They're going to these countries. Some of them are picking different places. But if you're looking, the problem with Dublin, the knock on Dublin is this is where the social crises and capitalism collide. The crisis is in Dublin is we can't get these people can't get apartments or places to live. Yeah. So they're turning around and they're saying, well, we want to bring in just 16 staff and and they're coming in from the city of London. So they're used to paying London rental prices for the most part, and they turn around and they're going, Jesus, this is worse.
But there has to be issues then with transfer of data between Ireland and England, in that it ceases to be part of the affected group from GDPR.
Unless basically they can work around that. But at the moment, I'm not sure what's going to happen, because Britain is still basically not complying. Everything they've said they're going to do, they won't do. They've said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And the next day, change their minds. And if nobody coming up openly stating we're doing this, they've all got different voices. So if one day one minister, like Boris Johnson, says one thing, next day, Gove, someone will say something else. So you're not sure where you stand. Until we have a unified voice stating something's going to happen. Like in Ireland, in fairness to Leo Varadkar, he's done a good job protecting our interests in Europe and making sure that with Brexit, whatever's going to happen, we're going to be looked after. He's made sure of that, which is great. I'm not his biggest fan, but he's stood up for Ireland. So in fairness, in the way he's Coveney. Certainly, they're making sure that we're going to be not going to be walked over, unlike in the past where we were.
Well, I will reserve judgment until we actually see, because we've been down this road before on other issues, and at the very last hurdle, we got the kicking, and we got it really good. We got it with the banking crisis. So I reserve judgment. I think there is no other way for any politician in Ireland to be except, look, Ireland's interests come first over the UK's, because we're actually part of this. I don't think you'd have any divergence from anybody in the political spectrum on any side. No. I think you can go hard left, hard right. Everybody will say the same.
There's not one, because there's not one economic scenario post-Brexit that anybody's better off.
Yes.
As you saw the analogy where someone said that what they've said to people in the UK is, you want to move house, so you want to move house, and you were told that if you put your house on the market, you can move house, and then you're going to get this nicer new house. Now it's clear that the market that you were buying into was gone to shit, and the houses that are available are actually worse than the house that you're leaving. But unfortunately, the house that you're leaving now has actually already been sold. So you don't know, you have to go to the shitter house. And so there's a lot of that going on in the Brexit context, clearly, where people are they're actually waking up to the reality is that you have to move, and it's not going to be better than where you've left. So there's no winners here. It's just actually, there's actually the only big problem I see, and I do see it politically, is that Corbyn has been weak in coming out and saying, if I was elected, I would maybe try and look at renegotiating something.
No, that's political suicide. That's political suicide.
What, trying to renegotiate?
Yeah, that's political suicide for Corbyn. Political suicide.
You can't do it.
Can't do it. Just can't do it. It's the same. Here, we all go back and we vote again.
I didn't say vote again. I said renegotiate. I want to be clear on that. The Brits don't, they have integrity. We saw Amber Rudd resign over an email chain.
Yes.
We saw people in Ireland turn around and say, nothing to do with me, Gov, wasn't aware, Gov, and just, can we have a scoping inquiry? Women are dead.
Yeah.
Women are dead.
I think the Brexit is going to, we may end up with sort of another Max Schrems situation where people are saying, well, you can't be sending any data to the UK at all.
Yeah.
You're going to have to store everything outside of the UK. I mean, it's kind of the same situation as the US is now.
Yeah.
So that's going to make things very complicated within Europe.
Well, the thing is, if you got a bank that's based, a bank in Ireland that actually owned with somebody in the UK, for example, RBS, how are they going to deal with your data then? But also, the bank is a subsidiary of RBS, and RBS basically is a British company. And are they going to, when they issue their annual profits, do they include data from Northern Ireland, from Southern Ireland in that?
They do, actually.
Yeah.
They issued, Ulster Bank announced their results in sterling and via the UK every quarter. So things like that, those little simple things are all going to become complex where there was no need for them to be.
But on a domestic scale, your advice for domestic business and domestic users is encryption.
Yeah.
So your laptop must be encrypted. If you're not there already, run out today, get encrypted.
Yeah, or a laptop or desktop. Depends on whatever machine you use to store your data, whatever you're using to work with, get encrypted.
And then let your clients know individually, not part of as a chain, where their data, what data you have on them, where you're storing that data. And they're the basic steps. That's what you need to do.
And also make sure as well, on your laptop or computer, you have a password as well. On top of that, because you want that as well. So when they go to your computer, they see, I've got a password as well on top of that. So you're doubly protected. Because the encryption I have on my Mac is so secure, unless you're FBI, CIA, you can't hack into it.
Okay.
And so if I left it behind, someone pick it up, they couldn't get into it because they had no software to do it.
All right.
So you need something that's secure. And
what type of money are you looking at to buy the encryption for the PC?
Maybe €100.
Okay, so it's not overly expensive if you're running a business.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much it is. Well, it depends. If you're a business and you got a business version of Windows, it's already on there. But if you bought your PC in like a local shop like Dixon's or Curry's, or you bought it in PC World with both of them, or you bought it in Harry Norman, you've got the home version of Office, of Windows. So you have to go and buy that from Microsoft themselves.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure if that's per year or for one-off. I'm not sure actually what that is, but my view is it's money well spent.
Well, it is money well spent when you're looking at what type of fines you're looking for.
20 million if up turnover.
Yeah. Well, so if you're a company who can't take a 20 million hit, encrypt your laptop, put your passwords on, and tell your customers. And that's every business.
Mark Zuckerberg.
But that's every business from.
Yeah.
Pa.
Even like a corner shop. If you're basically a corner shop and you have a system set up, basically some of your clients are paying you via their debit card, that can be done via software on your computer. So rather than spend money on a big huge system that they scan it, it's linked into your computer and then it goes online. So your company your bank company might give you a little scanning card which logs into your computer, then goes online, and you tap it in and it goes through that and onto the to your bank, whatever it is. That's going to need to have protection as well.
So you're talking basically your Chinese takeaway that you tap your card.
Well, that's if it's sorted into linked into a computer locally.
Okay.
But a lot of them are now. A lot of things now, like your touchpad tills and keypads.
And if you got a system where basically somebody walk in and you've got an iPad has been used, where you go in and look up your iPad. Mr. Tony, I see you're here for dinner for two. You and your good missus, come on, sit down. They've got your name on the iPad and probably a phone number because you booked in advance, maybe email address. That's data.
I actually got one of those emails recently. It said, we haven't seen you in over a year, y'all. I got one of those.
I think it's great in a way because now I'm seeing, geez, I didn't know I was even registered with these people. So these are who my data has been shared with over years. So the nice thing is I know that by ignoring it, they have to drop me off their books in the next fortnight. So I'm just
but it doesn't mean they will.
I mean, well, people
that'd be interesting
because you're going to get a few cut ones you can afford to find.
Sorry. Oh yeah. But you will have absolutely because I'm sure Facebook are sitting there going because they're sending emails as well to people saying, hey, have you accepted our new terms and conditions? I'm not on
then
Facebook.
Again, how far does any of this go with our enforcement?
No, in Ireland, they won't do that. You have to take a quick at the Max Rams, go to the European Court to get anything done because it won't happen here.
So basically, you could, if you're a company that just not ours doing any of this, that the way things stand at the moment, pretty much you're going to get away with it.
The Data Protection Commissioner has got powers.
Oh yeah, but does not use not a fraction of the powers available. No company has ever been told, no, you cannot keep data. And you take something like my example, the Department of Social Welfare, who's really screwing people with this public services card. The Data Protection Commissioner can say, you're not allowed to collect any data. And basically cripple the entire Department of Social Welfare until they stop. I mean, it only take 1 hour and it would be done and over.
No, they can stop you being a data controller. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can take you out. You can say you're no longer liable. They can hit you with individual fines for each individual case.
Absolutely.
And those fines can be, I think, up to 100,000 per individual case.
The powers are brilliant.
No, the powers are there. It's just they walk around, and then they say at the end of it all, they say, "Oh, sure, listen, would you not just sort it out yourselves, lads?"
It's practically impossible to get the Data Protection Commissioner to make a decision. There is always looking for a compromise, but that's built into the Data Protection Commissioner's remit.
But right now, she's got false teeth. Whenever she's asked to use her teeth and bare it, she takes them out.
It's sad, but it's true.
Yeah.
Because, we talk about it, and I know I know it's not the same, but you mentioned laptops going missing. I remember where one of the big insurance companies lost a laptop, and it was, it had client pension information on it, and, heads rolled, it was a big deal. But what you end up with in Ireland is a culture of where we can actually have a bloody tribunal where a man's life was ruined, and people are actually given evidence and taken as credible witnesses who lost 9 out of 12 phones.
What I find funny is if you use a mobile phone, all data in that phone is backed up on cloud storage.
Yes, but the problem here is okay. Two things. Some of these phones were dumb phones. They were Nokia 3310s or whatever. Yeah. And then the second part of it is, this is a tribunal.
Yeah.
If it was, there's no compellability to be able to go to Vodafone or O2 or whoever it is and say, we want that backup data because also all they've asked for is the physical phones. Yeah. They haven't gone to the third parties. Whereas if it was an actual criminal trial, they'd go and they'd get the bloody, the companies to comply,
For example, when I get a new phone every 2 years, I want an iPhone, I go and get it. All my data from my old phone is backed up in the clouds. When I get a new phone, so if somebody gets a new phone, their data is pulled down automatically. Mm-hmm. So all they've got to do is say, okay, fair enough. Go back and see how many backups have you got of your storage. And I guarantee you, looking back at my phone, you could find 80 or 90 different versions of the backups. Mm-hmm. So you can go back and say, pick the one of the relevant dates and pull it down. Easy to do.
Yeah, they actually don't physically need the phone to know what was on the phone.
No, most phones back up to these things most nights once they're plugged in, charging online.
Every morning at 4 o'clock, my phone goes to iCloud and backs up. And also, it shares data with my laptop and my iPad, and also with my watch as well. So I've got shared data on all of them.
So where do you think we are going to be in 4 weeks from now? Do you think we're going to see any great difference with GDPR? Do you see we're going to see any great panic? Or do you think we're just going to tip along until the ship hits the iceberg?
We'll see a lot of guys wearing brown underpants.
Do you think?
I think that's going to happen because they're going to realise. And the thing I should have mentioned earlier is that if you're a company that's more than one employee, one guy has to be the controller possessor in the company. Yes. And if they haven't got that person set up yet to do it yet, they have to. And the guy has to know what he's doing and know how to control the data. Yeah. If you're like me, a one-man band, or maybe an employee who basically who works for themselves, and is the guys who are like basically trying to pay less tax. They've got their own little business. Certain people, I'm talking about. I won't mention names, but you know what I'm going on about. People who actually employed by the company rather than through their employee directly.
Yeah.
Those guys won't have to have that because if they're just the director of the company, they don't need it. But if you're somebody who's suddenly got 10 employees working for them and they're basically doing a lot of different gigs and they work for 10 different guys and they got 10 guys working for them, one of those guys has to be data controller and processor. And you have to tell they make sure that's like you said, that this person is doing that for me.
Yes.
And the data commissioner know my data processor is going to be this person. Now, obviously, if you're a one-man band, you'd have to. But if you're a two-man band, one of you has to do this.
Yeah. Somebody has to be the data controller for that company.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
exactly. And you got to let them know how it's been processed, how to process the data. Now, if you don't tell them this, there's problems because they won't know what's going on. So you got to let them know the data is been held here, what's been held, and who's processed by. Let them come in the execution know you're doing this, what you're doing, or her office. This is what who's doing it for me, and that's it. Also, you can go ahead and do courses on that as well on data protection.
Okay, so there are courses out there that you can do.
Well, obviously, if you're basically a big company with over 50 employees, you need every person doing this has to be certified as well.
Yes.
Now, if you're a smaller company, maybe you can get away with it because you're that small and he has 3 or 4 employees, that person's sole job should be just to process data. But if you're a small company, that guy will have more than one job.
Yeah.
So obviously you can't do that. But if you've got 50 guys in your company or plus, that one guy's only job should be data processing, nothing else.
Yeah.
So that guy suddenly sneak out and told, oh, by the way, tomorrow will come in, I want you to handle the sales and marketing for me. No, his job was only to process data and make sure it's been looked after and processed, and go around and talk to the staff in the company and make sure they're doing things above board and legally, and maybe now and again get training involved so that when you go into a company, basically, when they come in each day, the staff knows how to handle a data breach, or basically what is data breach. Like, for example, if you're somebody who, for example, who gets his emails coming in, you get emails coming all the time, and it could be a scam email. It might say Bank of Ireland, and you look at it, oh, it's my bank, and they ask you to give them their data back. Now, if you go to your email header and look at it in detail, you will see it's not Bank of Ireland. But if you don't bother doing that, you respond back, and then next thing you know,
you have a data breach.
Yeah. Now, there's a company in Kildare called Email Laundry that have software that actually get around this. They'll actually train your staff. They'll send you a fake email, and the CV staff will actually click on it. It's a click on it. Up comes a YouTube video telling you you've been caught fish, you've been fished, and what to do.
That's a very good idea.
And rather than actually being
stick beating people with.
Yeah, and rather than your boss telling you you're getting 20 on the finger nickels for doing this, your boss will go, this is what we're doing now. We're not telling you we're doing this is part of our new policy. We're bringing this in. So just to make sure that you understand, though, that if a data breach, what happens. So Email Laundry did this about a couple of years ago, brought this in, and it's a great little product that actually, also you can also hire them to actually go through email. So before you get email on your computer, it will go through and check all your, make sure there's no spam or no virus on your emails. So when you get it, everything is clean of all that as well.
That's a very good idea.
And that's a service we should have, people should be more aware of and looking at things like that. I mean, there are one company who does that. There's other guys that do it as well, but I know the guy, the owner, can back him up pretty well. And what he's doing is a great service. And I wrote about it earlier in the year and wrote for Phoenix about security. I mentioned them because he just did a report on data protection and how businesses are coping with it. And at times, businesses don't cope too well. They sort of think a data protection is an add-on.
Yes.
Or tomorrow.
A hindrance.
Yeah, and they go basically tomorrow. And then tomorrow is tomorrow. They've always, the one you go, there's 2 words that you use, staying tomorrow. Today's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then just keep kicking down the road.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. And I'm quite sure there's a lot of people out there now looking at their laptops thinking, is this encrypted? Is it not encrypted? There's a lot of small businesses out there who aren't prepared for this, and coming in here and giving us the basics of what people have to do to comply with GDPR is brilliant, because now people have something to look at.
You know, they've got to basically, it's something that they think it won't affect me, but it does.
Yes.
And anybody who's got a business of some sort, even if you're a window cleaner, that you could have your data of your clients. They could have a spreadsheet in Excel saying, this is my clients and who I work with each week and who paid me. That's data. That's going to be stored. So no matter every company now is a tech company. If you're a window cleaner, you're a tech company because everything's stored online. If you're McDonald's,
you're a tech company.
And you walk in there now and you go to order food, there's a thing in the back of the off shop. We walk into it. You can tap on and order your foods. When you go up there, it's already ordered on there. So
we'll definitely have to get you back in later on and see how. We've taken the temperature right now.
Yeah.
We'll have to get you back on a couple of months and see how things have shaped up. This is going to be an interesting curveball thrown at people.
Yeah, and especially with Brexit kicking in as well, that's going to make it a bit of more of a challenge. And also, are we going to fully comply with the European legislation? That's going to be interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah, loads of questions there, Tony.
I don't, and I don't even want to give a guess of what I think is going to happen, because like just the implications of crossing a border and you know, behaving under 2 different jurisdictions in the space of spinning up the mire. All of these things are not going to be simple.
Well, the thing to remember about GDPR, above all else, it's to protect us, the individual, from the mendacious, from the shady. So it's something that has to be built in. It's something that has to be built into every company from the ground up.
I think that's it.
Just before I go, one thing I mentioned that on Twitter, if you're going to follow what's going on in America, follow 2 guys. James Woods, the actor, because he's very, very pro-Trump, and he's very insightful in one way that you can see how they think.
Okay.
And John Cusack, the actor, he's very anti-Trump.
Yes. John Cusack is brilliant.
It's great. That's the old trick of you said to watch. You could turn on Al Jazeera and then turn on Fox News, and somewhere in between you might get.
It was a while ago, I was on to him and I was tweeting to John Lee, he got back to me. Because my account is verified, if you can verify the account, there's more chance of they'll talk to you.
Yeah.
So I was replying back to him, saying certain things. And some of the stuff he's saying on there, I won't repeat because there's a lot of swear words in it.
Oh yeah, no, John's a robust guy.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I just love the way you think. I just saw one day by chance, somebody I was following retweeted this week. I gotta follow this guy because I've been following for a while and I'm looking at what stuff's been going on from James Woods. And he's very, very right wing.
Yeah.
And thinking, okay, I want to see somebody who's the anti-James Woods. And John Cusack is that.
John Cusack, I mean, anybody who doesn't know John Cusack, go watch Gross Point Blank, one of the best movies ever made. So, he's a really nice guy, Yeah, and I'm sitting there going, and I'm thinking, I just love the way that he doesn't take shit from anybody. Yeah.
Luckily, he doesn't have to. We're not all independently wealthy. Listen, folks, we really appreciate you listening. And please just tell your friends, hit subscribe, leave us a review. All of these things matter. We do try to take on board what you say, so do send us feedback. Send us a tweet. Let us know what you think, and let us know what you think we should be actually talking about. And talk to you all soon. Take care.